And in that moment, I didn't want to just pivot. Like, I didn't want to just do a little tweak. I wanted to, like, metaphorically torch the whole damn thing, like everything. It's about giving yourself permission to burn down the mask that you've been wearing, the autopilot version of you, the version that's been hustling for her worth, rather than recognizing it was never conditional to begin with. And from that place, we get to ask ourselves, who am I when I'm not trying to be who I think I need to be? I'm your host, Lauren, and together, let's explore what it really means to embrace authenticity in a world that often values conformity. If you've ever felt the pull to challenge the status quo or deepen your connection to self, you're in the right place. Welcome back to another episode of Not So Status Quo. It is so truly good to have you here. And the fact that you clicked play on this particular episode might very well mean that you have been feeling an itch, maybe an urge, a sense of frustration with your current reality. And look, I don't know what's going on with the universe right now. Maybe something's in retrograde. I'm not sure, but the energy does feel different for me. So, what about you? Have you been feeling a little bit off or a little bit drained like I have? The reality is, even if something is in retrograde at the moment and is altering your energy, that deep feeling of uneasiness, of frustration, it's probably been there for a while. It's like those moments where everything just feels off, when nothing might technically be wrong, but at the same time, nothing feels really deeply right either. This week, you may have even looked at your calendar and it was full, but somehow your soul felt kind of empty. It's like you're ticking the boxes, you're showing up, you're doing all the right things, but something inside you is screaming at you that this just isn't it. And if it sounds like I know what I'm talking about, it's because I do. I've been here so many times. I actually remember this one time. It was a couple of days before my 29th birthday. It was a Sunday, and I was in the kitchen cooking. And so I'm born in January, so it was only a few weeks after New Year's Eve. And I was reflecting that my next birthday was going to be 30, and what had I achieved? What was I wanting to achieve? And I had this overwhelming feeling of frustration, like a deep frustration. And I'd felt it a lot, but this was deep. And I felt like time was running out and that another year had passed by. And how did it pass by so quickly? And although I had done some really cool things in the 12 months prior, and I was starting to let my true self express herself a lot more, I still wasn't living a life that truly felt like the one that deep down I knew I was meant for. And the thought that hit me was, what if I just burned it all down and started again? Not literally, obviously, but what if I walked away from everything? The expectations, the plans, the relationship, the job, the pressure to keep it all together and functioning the way that it had been. And in that moment, I didn't want to just pivot. Like, I didn't want to just do a little tweak. I wanted to, like, metaphorically torch the whole damn thing, like everything. But what I've learned since then, is that sometimes it's not your whole life that needs to be burnt down to the ground. Sometimes it's actually the stories that you're carrying about who you're supposed to be, what success should look like, and why maybe you're still not feeling like you're enough. And sometimes, as was in my case, it's a combination of both. Some things just do have to be burnt. And that's exactly what this episode is about today, because while reinvention can obviously look like moving cities and ending the relationship or changing your career, honestly, the biggest, longest lasting, and sustainable transformations most often start from the inside. So, are you ready to jump into this one with me? Let's just call it how it is. We don't get the urge to burn everything down unless something inside us feels misaligned. And you know what? It's really easy to label these feelings as just us being really dramatic or overly sensitive. But often, this feeling is a signal that we really need to pay attention to and absolutely not dismiss, because it can certainly be a symptom of long term exhaustion, of internal pressure, and in a lot of instances, your unmet needs. So, I really do believe that this is our soul's way of saying, our intuition, whatever you want to call it, that something isn't working and I can't keep pretending that it is. And for many of us, this urge doesn't come out of nowhere. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. It really is building and building and building in the background, and you might have been trying to suppress it for a long time. And you can even see where these things are coming up. So, for example, it's a sigh that you might give out when you feel like you have to do a particular task or you've been asked to do something. Maybe it's a sigh that you give out when you're opening your laptop at your job that you don't like. Maybe it's that resistance that you're feeling when someone is asking you what you want and you honestly just have no clue. Or maybe, and for so many of you, I know this is the case, it's the Sunday night dread that you feel every Sunday because Monday is literally around the corner. And the feeling of scrolling and comparing and thinking that maybe if you lived somebody else's life, that maybe you would feel better. Now, I want you to pause for a moment and I want to offer you this. The urge to burn it down is rarely about your entire life. It's about a version of you, an identity that you've outgrown. Maybe you built your life around who you thought you needed to be: the overachiever, the fixer, the people pleaser, the one who's always got it together. And even if your life looks good on the outside, on paper, if it doesn't feel like you, your body will let you know. Your nervous system will subtly or not so subtly let you know that this isn't safe anymore, if ever. Let's be real. So instead of judging that urge, what if you introduced curiosity into the mix? I seriously, seriously love curiosity. I think it's such a beautiful word. And what it can actually do in our self discovery journey is transformational. So if you're being curious, you might actually ask yourself, what am I actually really craving, right? Like, is this frustration pointing me towards my truth, what I truly want? Have I built my identity on what I thought was right, but I'm actually not honoring the real me? This, again, isn't about throwing your whole life into the bin, okay? We're not chucking it in the bin. It's about giving yourself permission to burn down the mask that you've been wearing, the autopilot version of you, the version that's been hustling for her worth, rather than recognizing it was never conditional to begin with. And from that place, we get to ask ourselves, who am I when I'm not trying to be who I think I need to be? So then the question is, what are we actually really craving? When we hit that point where we want to throw it all away, burn it all down, the career, the relationship, the routines, the entire version of ourselves that we feel like we've been performing as, it can really feel like we want this really big, drastic change. But more often than not, what we're truly, truly craving isn't complete destruction. It's not the complete burning down and restarting of everything. It's actually a feeling, and it's often a feeling of relief. Like relief from the pressure to hold everything together, relief from the roles we've outgrown, but we still feel obligated to play, relief from living at a version of ourselves that's no longer truly us. And it's almost like this ache. Like, have you felt this? Like, I'm so familiar with this feeling. It's an ache inside us that wants you to finally feel like you again, or maybe even feel like you for the first time ever that you can recall. I'm sure you'd agree that we are often taught to chase milestones like titles, a degree, the relationship, the house, the body. And this can really have us thinking that's what will finally give us permission to feel like we're enough, and or that we're safe, or that we're worthy, or that we're truly happy and fulfilled. But like, honestly, behind every external goal is an internal craving. Behind the desire to leave your job might be a craving for creative expression. I mean, this was absolutely true for me in a lot of my 20s. Like, I craved that creative expression. Maybe behind the urge to end the relationship is a craving for emotional safety with someone else or even with yourself. Again, both of these were applicable to me. Maybe behind the longing for a fresh start might be a craving for authenticity, for clarity, for peace, or one of my absolute favorites is for lightness. I want to have this light feeling. And when we confuse the symptom for the solution, we might burn down parts of our lives that actually don't need to be destroyed. They just need a bit of realignment. So sometimes the answer isn't tearing it all down, it's tuning back inside. And not just as a whole, but tuning into all facets of you and your life. So I invite you to ask yourself, in what part of my life am I being who I think I should be instead of who I truly am? I invite you to notice, what am I chasing that's already available to me if I slowed down and looked inwards? I invite you to explore, what would it feel like to come home to myself before running away from everything else? Because the true craving and the true desire underneath all of that chaotic feeling is almost always this: to feel like your life fits you, to feel like you fit your own skin again. And that kind of clarity is not found in external change, it's found in reconnection with yourself. So it's time to burn down the stories, not your life. Okay, let me explain. When we're deep in the feelings of frustration or stagnation, it's really easy to think the solution is to just overhaul everything around us, to get that new job, to have a new partner, to be in a new city, to get a new haircut. I don't know, change something about your appearance. It's like you're wanting this clean slate energy. And my friends, I've been here time and time again. But the reality that most people tend to overlook is that your life is unlikely the problem. Look, I mean, sometimes it is, and you do actually just need to restart everything. But often it's actually the stories that you hold about yourself and your life. We discussed this in the last deep dive solo episode on self concept. So if you haven't listened to that one, definitely jump into it after this, because it will provide you a lot of that background information. We also have a tendency to think that we need to escape our reality. I still get this sometimes. I just want to jump on a plane and just frolic in the sea in the Mediterranean. Like, I have this feeling of escape. But more often, we need to rewrite our internal narrative, because your self concept, which is the subconscious identity you've built about who you are, so like how you see yourself, what you believe you're worthy of, what you believe you're capable of, is the lens through which you experience everything. As a refresher, you could have the most supportive partner in the world, but if you believe deep down that you're unlovable or hard to be with, you'll find ways to confirm that. Now, remember, your subconscious loves to prove you right. And so many of us are walking around with a self concept and an identity that was constructed rather than one that we chose, one that was built from the stories we were told, the roles that we were rewarded for, and the beliefs that we absorbed before we were old enough to even question them. And these came from what your parents praised or punished you for, the moments that you felt rejected, where you felt dismissed, or where you really felt like you weren't enough. Maybe it's what teachers, coaches, or peers labeled you as. These stick with us. It's the narratives that society handed to you about what success looks like, how love should be, what beauty is, about money, about your purpose. It's also cultural expectations and inherited trauma responses. And the reality is, somewhere along the way, your subconscious stitched it all together to create a template, okay? An identity, a version of who you are. And then you started living in alignment with that story, not because it necessarily felt right, but because it felt familiar. And your brain loves familiar, even if it's not good for you. You might believe things like, I'm the responsible one, so I don't get to choose freedom. Or I'm the quiet one, so I shouldn't take up space. How many of you experienced this one? I'm the good girl, so I need to make everyone else comfortable and happy before myself. Maybe it's that I'm the one who works hard, so I must hustle in order to earn my success. And even if consciously you know that those beliefs aren't helpful, subconsciously you're still running on that outdated operating system. The last few episodes, solo episodes, we've spoken about this. And let me tell you, identity is sticky. It becomes the lens through which you interpret your life. Unless we interrupt it, we will keep creating the same results and calling it just the way things are. Oh, and something else I want to highlight about your outdated identity stories is that they drive us to chase the wrong things, the things that we think we should want. And they can keep us playing small in roles that really just don't fit. And they can cause us to avoid different things like love and being openness. It can delay our success, or it can have us say yes when we really want to say no. And best believe I am popping my eyeballs through your speaker and your earphones right now, and I'm eyeballing you when I say that one. So, what if your reinvention wasn't about doing more? What if it's actually about deconditioning, unbecoming, unlearning? Unlearning the belief that you have to earn your worth, unlearning the idea that ease means laziness, unlearning the fear that being your full self is too much or not enough. So, the invitation here isn't to burn down your life, okay? It's to burn down and unlearn the beliefs that are misaligned, outdated, and no longer true that are creating your misaligned self concept and identity. Beliefs like it has to be hard to be worth it. People like me don't get to have that kind of life or that kind of success. If I slow down, everything will fall apart. I should just be grateful for what I have. These stories might have served a purpose once. They might have helped you feel safe, accepted, or in control. But now they are literally walls between you and the life that you actually want. And this is where self concept work truly becomes really powerful because when you change your identity level beliefs, your actions will shift, your energy will shift, and your reality starts to reflect the new internal alignment. So instead of saying that you need to change everything, you could start by asking, who do I believe I am? And is that version of me actually aligned with the life I want? And that's what we metaphorically burn down. Not the apartment or the relationship or the career, but the cheeky, invisible stories that are literally shaping every part of our lives from behind the scenes. And I promise you that once you release the story, the real ones that are keeping you stuck, you open yourself up to create from your authentic truth, not from trauma, not from conditioning, because the stories that built you are not the stories that have to define you forever. And once you can see them clearly, you can start to intentionally release the ones that no longer fit and reconnect with the parts of yourself that you've abandoned to feel safe and maybe accepted and maybe to feel like you're in control. Now, reconnect really is the key word here, and it probably warrants a little bit further exploration because so often when we are craving these massive change, we're actually craving relief, like we've discussed, but we're also craving reconnection. And that isn't necessarily often to somebody else or a new job or whatever, to a new location. But honestly, that reconnection, it's to ourselves, the self that we've really abandoned, trying to be palatable, productive, perfect. I'm talking to myself in that one. Reconnection, it will look different for everyone, but it might look like really getting to know your values. So you stop shape shifting to fit into spaces that don't actually align with you. I do a lot of value based work with my one on one clients because it's so foundational. It might also look like that you start enjoying your own company and not needing other people, company, noise, distractions to feel okay. feeling comfortable to take yourself out on a dinner date. Sydney and I spoke about this briefly in our episode the other day. It's so powerful. And I experienced this when I traveled solo for 3.5 months, the power of really getting comfortable with being by yourself and loving your own company truly and deeply. And yes, that can be uncomfortable. It is one of, hands down, one of the best things that I've ever done for myself in my life is get comfortable, truly comfortable with my own company in private and in public. Listening to your inner voice and your intuition more instead of outsourcing your decisions to other people's expectations and timelines is so powerful. And it means getting radically honest about what's yours, what are your dreams, what are your desires, what is your truth, and what is handed to you by somebody else. Because sometimes the most transformational kind of self love isn't doing bubble baths and journaling under the moon, as lovely and nourishing as that might be. Sometimes self love is boundary setting, it's walking away. It's saying, I'm done abandoning myself, and it's choosing your integrity over your image. It's learning to validate your own needs instead of waiting for permission from others. It's knowing that the path to alignment isn't found in another reinvention of who the world wants you to be, but in finally becoming who you were always meant to be, underneath the noise and underneath the expectations. And when you're anchored in who you actually are, you will stop reaching for quick fixes. You will stop trying to prove your worth. You will make decisions that don't actually cost you your peace anymore. You will trust your timing. You will trust the process. You will trust that everything is unfolding the way that it needs to because you're no longer trying to escape your life. You're actually present in it. And that's what creates long term change, not the dramatic burn it all down moment, but the actual it's almost like a courageous, it takes courage. It's like a courageous returning to your authentic self. And a really important question that you should be asking yourself when you do have that deep desire to just restart everything or even a small part of your life is, am I acting from alignment or am I reacting from emotion? Because honestly, it is really easy to confuse your sense of discomfort with your sense of misalignment. And it's also really easy to mistake your frustration for failure and feeling like you failed. It's also really easy to assume that just because something feels really hard that it means that it's wrong or it's not meant for you. But aligned action feels really it's really different. It's different from like an emotional reaction. Your emotional reaction is often, it's very fast, it can be very impulsive, it can feel really like loud and chaotic. But aligned action, it might still feel urgent. Don't get me wrong, there still might be a sense of urgency, but it's far more like steady and grounded, like anchored, and it feels really self honoring. Like it has a really different energy. And on that point, you can tell the difference by checking in with your body, noticing your breath, noticing your energy. Like, does the desire for change feel really expansive or does it feel a bit frantic? Is it coming from a place of clarity or is it coming from a place of fear? Like, that's a really big one. Is it the easier option that will still leave you feeling misaligned and unfulfilled? When that call for reinvention comes from emotional exhaustion, you risk recreating the same patterns in a different setting. I have learnt this the hard way. And let me tell you, burnt out Lauren doesn't make good decisions. And while, yes, there are moments where burning it all down has definitely felt like the most aligned move for me. Like I've had many of them and they seriously have changed my life. Like, hello, divorce at the age of 29, like without children. Like, I've made these decisions, but you don't always need to make dramatic moves to create meaningful change. And this is a misconception that I really want to debunk because sometimes it's honestly the smallest of shifts that are the most potent. It really is. Maybe it's a boundary that you're finally setting. It could be a routine that you're just tweaking, which means that you're prioritizing yourself a bit more. Maybe a story about your worth that you've decided you can chuck that one in the bin. A self concept that you finally rewire. And these micro decisions, they really, really do compound. They create momentum. Think of the domino, like one little domino, when it falls, it causes a chain reaction. So here's what I want you to know and what I want to scream from the absolute rooftops. You are allowed to pivot. You're allowed to outgrow. You are allowed to change. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to change everything about your life if you want to. But let the change, like let it come through you, not like at you. Let it be really a conscious reclaiming, not a reactive, impulsive escape. Because when your reinvention is coming from alignment, not like a place of avoidance, it won't look just good on the outside and on paper. It will actually feel like your truth on the inside. And that is what we are seeking. That is the aim. Okay, have I inspired you today to really take a look inside? Because this is where all of the transformation really does begin. Now, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, damn, I have absolutely been feeling like this. I have absolutely been feeling like there's a part of my life that just needs to go, or maybe you've been feeling like all of it needs to go. I really want to provide you with a few reflection questions. Please hold space for yourself to ask yourself these questions and really get to the bottom of why you're feeling like this, because then you can have actual targeted change. So, the first question is, what do I actually want to burn? Is it my job? Is it my relationship? Is it the pressure that I've been feeling? Is it the perfectionism? Is it the belief that I'm only worthy when I'm producing or pleasing or performing? The second question is, what version of me am I ready to meet? Who is she? Is it the part of me that used to dream bigger? Is it the version of me that felt really free or maybe really soft and feminine? Maybe it's creative. Who are you trying to meet? Who would you like to meet? Okay, third question. What roles or labels have I carried that don't actually feel true for me anymore? And I'll give you one more. What assumptions have I made about who I am or what I'm allowed to have? Write these down, reflect on them, hold space for yourself, and keep asking yourself why. Like, why, until you get to the end and you're really left with that underlying, deep seated, often very quiet, sneaky beliefs that you hold about yourself. And this will really point you in the direction of where you need to move. You really don't need to reactively burn down your whole life to begin again. You just need to rediscover who you already are by asking yourself these questions. But I really want you to approach it from a place of curiosity. And then it's about taking the aligned action. And this really starts with like deep self-honesty and a decision that you're not going to keep living a life that doesn't feel like yours anymore. So if you're feeling that itch to burn it all down, I want you to pause, get super, super honest with yourself, and then decide how you're going to move forward with intention, because now you're informed. Because sometimes the real fire isn't in the destruction, it's in the reclamation. All right, my friends, that brings us to the end of this episode where we are talking about burning the mask down. We're burning down the stories, not necessarily the life. I'm really glad that you've been a part of this conversation. If you have enjoyed this episode, I would love for you to share this with somebody else that you think could benefit. Like it, subscribe to the podcast. I would be forever grateful. Your support means the world, and it does mean that I can get even more incredible guests on the episodes. If you are enjoying listening to Not So Status Quo, hopefully I am bringing you different things that you're really enjoying, the balance between the solo episodes and the guest interviews. I'd really love to hear your feedback. So drop me a message on the Not So Status Quo Instagram page or the Status Aligned Instagram page. And if you're wanting some free resources to help you further with this, jump into the notes below because I do have links to a variety of different free resources that you are absolutely more than welcome to sign up to and download. And I hope that they help make a difference in your life. Thank you again, my friends, and I look forward to you joining me in the next episode of Not So Status Quo.